The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. We are from our usual location in Pflugerville and our not usual location, Dan Nolden's third home here in Outer Banks, North Carolina.
I thought you were about to say spots unknown.
This one's not easy to get to. That's a fact. It's about 8 miles up a beach, which is really the only way to get here. So high tide's interesting, but yeah.
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
We're not worried about a lot of traffic driving by, I guess.
Yeah, the most annoying thing is listening to the waves crash at night.
Yeah. Okay. Every once in a while, the 6 copters go by going back to Fort Bragg from training. I guess that's kind of a cool thing. Every once in a while, the dolphins interrupt the view out on the ocean. It's you do what you have to do, though.
Yeah, someone just asked a question here. It says, so back to my question from the last show. Okay.
All right.
I mean, when you're working on fixing things in your swing and release, do you tend to see a drop in pin total when you first start working on things?
Well, I work on them in practice, and when I'm working on a practice, I'm not keeping score. And I think if it takes longer than, if you don't know inside the first 10, 20 shots that the good ones feel way better, then you're probably not working on the right things.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it seems like if you've dropped that much, I don't think it's that's a huge change. So unless you've forgotten how to spare with your new technique, then you're probably not. Your new technique probably isn't the right thing to do. Would be my take from that.
I'm not too big on the getting worse to get better thing.
I think the other problem is for us, Chris, we're at a stage where we're adding rather than changing.
Yeah, but even when you coach middle level players, I don't to lose 20 pins to get back 20 pins. Are you really improving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the other point as well is maybe have a look at what the rest of the league is doing. Has the rest of the league dropped significantly? Because I understand that a lot of times we can be fairly insular and only look at ourselves. But, the last 2 weeks in league, I've bowled 730, 720. And I've probably knocked over 50 pins more than anybody else combined those 2 weeks. Whereas the previous week when I shot 750, I got beat by about 7 people. So I could say, well, I've shot 20 pins less the last 2 weeks. But the bowling center seems to be more difficult for everybody. So maybe that's part of it also. You got to be careful with that. Hey, Chris, nice to see you. Keep on trucking. Thanks for the super chat. We will continue to entertain you with some random bullshit again today. Do you feel the summit is really just in reality spot and makes it hard to justify its regular use? No. I mean, I don't think the summit and the reality are that close ball wise. I feel like I could use the summit at times when I use the reality, but I wouldn't be playing the same shape.
Yeah, I guess that's probably right. For some house shots, drier house shots, I could see where you're coming from. I do have them separate, but if you feel like they're too close, I would just let the summit either lane shine or put a little polish on it and separate them a little more. You want to do it that way?
We just need to take a moment. Where's Jason Couch? Where's Stephanie Zavala? Where's Mookie Betts? Where's DJ Archer? Your boys took one hell of a beating. Go D-backs. Anyway, back to normal. Especially Couch. Suck it, Couch. Stephanie can be quite obnoxious about the D-backs, about the Dodgers as well. So the fact that the D-backs postseason history last night, 4 home runs in the same innings. I don't know. Did you happen to see the game, Chris?
No, I caught some of the highlights. I caught the middle of the game, middle innings.
The absolute favorite part of it for me was when they hit the home run. The guy ran the bases, went into the dugout, and they said it went foul because it was like a foot, the wrong side of the foul pole. And he dusts himself off. He comes back and hits it to left field. So it was right field foul pole. So then he hits it, left center about 20 rows back and said, I'm having that home run. And then strolls back round and sits back down again. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Do you guys practice spares, Bailey? What's your practice regimen for spares? I don't hit the reset button. And so I work on versatility. I mean, I work on my base game at the beginning. Once it feels pretty good, then I 2 or 3 shots, change speed or change hand or change balls. And I keep kind of rotating around, which one makes me repeat what I'm doing good the first time. And then I leave more spares that way. And I don't hit the reset button on spares. So that's mostly how I do it, unless I'm really struggling, and then I'll make a concentrated effort to shoot them. But I find shooting them in a row is much different than shooting them in the middle of a block or so, which makes it trickier when you're practicing on the house shot because you do leave easier spares and make less of them.
Yeah, I mean the if you're in a bowling center where you can like set what you want, a way in which I can do that. I forget what that thing is, but where the pin seeker or whatever they call it. So you can have it set up like the 3, 6, 10 every time.
Oh yeah. GSXs have that.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do. Yeah.
So the way I do it when I'm trying to do it is I have the spare set up on one lane, and then I throw a strike shot on the other lane and go back and forth, because it's a bit like I don't know, you could speak better to this, but when you talk to like the basketball players, when they're practicing free throws, they can all hit free throws if they just stand there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that they've run around, and then their heart rate's high and like they're tired and whatever to shoot the free throw. And I understand we're not running around, but the muscle memory of just throwing the same shot over and over and over and over again is much easier than it is throw a strike shot, get pissed off you didn't strike, reset, and then throw the spare. So, yeah. That's kind of the way I do it anyway. I completely agree with you that I see very, very little value in just shooting at the 10 pin over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's not Outer Banks. You know this. You make people think like I don't talk to my mother.
Well,
and we literally talked about it last week before I left. Yeah. Oh, well,
to be
depends on how old
honest,
the surface is.
I have no idea. I'm sorry. I don't bowl on that one.
That means it's 4-1. I believe.
Blue?
Yeah. Red's 8-1, white's 6-1, blue's 4-1. So that's a fairly challenging league pattern. I guess except when you're putting it over the top of the house pattern, which is 12-1, which then makes it a little simpler. But if the surface changes how old it is and the volume. If you're at 30 mils, you can throw stronger balls like realities and gems and those kind of things. And if you're less than that, then you're going to be looking at more like phase 2 plus your skill set. Phase 2, Zen Gold, Zen, those kind of cleaner, but
Symmetrical balls.
yeah, low RG balls that are predictable.
Here's a man after your own heart, Chris, who says, as a Royals fan, I didn't realize baseball went past May. I'm usually right there with you. I have a bit of fun. I follow the Diamondbacks until they're 20 games behind, and then I kind of switch off to it. We didn't get to that point this year.
I followed the Rangers until like 2018, and then about July this year, I realized they had a good team.
Yeah, the city of Houston is getting ready to be assholes to the city of Dallas again.
Yeah,
it's gonna be. I think that's gonna be a fun series.
yeah. The certainly the biggest advantage is Houston's relievers are way better than. If
Well,
the
they've also
Rangers
been
bullpen
there.
can hold up, they might be interesting. Speaking of baseball, did you see the video of John Burkett throwing the first pitch like he's throwing a bowling ball? Yes, I think
Very cool.
most bowlers have seen that go across. It's very cool. Burkett had the first playoff win for the Rangers back in the early 90s and went out, took a wind up, for those who missed it, and then regathered himself and did a bowling approach and he threw it right over the plate too.
Yeah, that's
About
pretty
50 feet.
difficult.
It's not easy to do with a baseball. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Very, very cool. It's something he didn't have to do. I think it's, every once in a while we do the old, why are celebrities? Why are we doing this with celebrities? And then you get a lot more exposure out of one thing like that than, if a guy's actually invested in it. So,
Yeah.
My lighting's not great here.
It says they're looking for a mid-control ball that fits below the phase 2. Looking at the Exponent IQ tour, how do you compare? How do these two compare for you? That's exactly where we would go.
Exactly.
I think that the Exponent is a little more what I would call driller friendly because it flares a little more, so you can be a little more adventurous with the layout. For me personally, the IQ tour with having the lower diff. If I miss a little bit on the weak side, I feel like it becomes pretty angular, a little uncontrollable for me. I think that the IQ Tour maybe has a higher ceiling between the phase 2 and the IQ Tour of having a bigger gap. If everything's perfect, I think that the Exponent is maybe the safer choice because it's a very similar numbers to the phase 2, but a much weaker cover stock. It's kind of how I see it. Anyway.
I personally would just go with the Exponent. I've tried a few IQ tours in that slot, and for me, the Exponent gives me a little bigger window of things I can use it on. It's definitely weaker than the phase 2, though. So I think you're spot on where the fit is. The little bit of more flair. I just think it's kind of where we did use the IQ tour. What was it, 7-8 years ago, up till probably 2 or 3 years ago. Last couple of years it hasn't. We haven't been able to use it on tour. That doesn't mean it doesn't work as much. So
the one spot on tour that it really works well is Indy.
Yeah,
where there's a lot of friction.
Lower flare balls there in Woodland historically have been very much more successful.
Well, it's also a combination of that and the way that USBC's lane guy sees the patterns. They don't tend to like pile the oil on the lane.
Right.
So Chris says, I really like the Ruby. Is there a lot of difference between it and the Blackout? Yes. The Blackout has a stronger cover and a more dynamic weight block. The Ruby is closer than it should be based on all of the factors. But for me, I think that the Ruby is both cleaner and smoother than the Blackout. So for me, the Ruby is going to be much better if you don't want to play a bigger angle. It's a little more controllable. The Blackout is a ball that both me and Chris like to separate our feet and our break point. So having a really big angle through the front, I think that's where that ball stands out.
She has some giddy up.
Yeah.
Or as Stewards want to say, it's a banger.
Yep. It booms down lane, that's for sure.
Yes. Low key, best vacation. It's been a pretty. We have a couple more days left. It's really good. Some of the reason left-handed players we lead in 10 pins. Your break point's too far down the lane, and you're coming in behind the head pin. If it was too early, it would be flat sevens. So almost always you're a little light in the pocket, and you're coming in behind the head pin a little too much. Get your break point closer to you. Throw it slower, get a stronger ball.
Hello, Adam. How we doing? He says, hello, Chris Barnes. Oh, always both names. Good seeing you doing ball reviews again. Are you going to do a review on the Magic Gem?
But not
it has
until
to arrive first, Adam.
Yeah.
And then Mark follows it up with, Stu, you threw the Magic Gem in League and then in a review video. Have you thrown it anymore, and what's your opinion on it now? I have, actually. I threw it again in League the other night for a slightly different reason as well. The lanes were they were quite cliffed, but cliffed they were a dry cliff. And I used it to kind of play the oil line, but control that wet dry. And I really actually quite like this Magic Gem. It fits for me anyway. I've been able to use it in a fairly similar spot to what the good bowlers seem to be able to use the gem in. So for me, it's that little bit cleaner, which means that it's a little bit more continuous down the lane. It makes it a much more usable ball for me than the gem is. I feel like I can do kind of the same things that people do with the gem, but I can do it with that ball for longer than I can with the gem. The gem is just so early in the front part of the lane for me that it forces me to go further left. And once I go further left, then it hasn't really got the giddy up down the lane. So
what's so special about the original E2 Cheetah in Waxahachie next week? Mostly it's Keith Lesko's tired of bowling on long patterns, and he brought in the sponsor for this tournament. So that's most of it. He just wants to bowl on a short pattern.
He's going to be really disappointed when everybody throws the urethane balls.
You what?
He's going to be really disappointed. Hi, Stu. Is that your wife, or is that who's that?
No chance.
Not
you guys move a little bit more this way. You're out of the camera now.
So okay.
There's 3 levels to this place. Oh, here we're trying to crawl back in. There we go.
Hello. Who's saying hi to me?
I don't know. I can't tell.
Okay, it's not that important.
Mr. Haggett.
Oh yeah, well, he's the only one tall enough.
Yeah, it's second floor, so it's
yeah. Well, I like it because he's brought the broom for those Diamondback for the Diamondback fans. Liked it. Sweet.
But as far as the cheetah, I think it's probably a little more hook off the gutter, so it'll be something we can throw 2, which might, I don't know. Well, it's been so long since we bowled on, it's hard to say. I guess it'd be more like West Malott cheetah. It's probably the closer definition. So Trey says, what are they putting at PSP and how will it affect ball motion? Well, I don't think they make HPL anymore, so it has to be SPL, which means it probably won't change a lot. The track will hook a little less, but there'll be plenty of hook because I do believe SPL is even softer than HPL, and it's certainly more textured.
I just don't think there'll be
thing is that SPL doesn't seem to be super consistent panel to panel all the time. So,
yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's going to be quite as much of a funnel to the pocket as there is right now. I think some of the straight guys might not be so thrilled, but we'll see.
The one thing, at least at Louisville, you can play a lot further right.
Mark says, "Hi guys, nice to see you." Levi, been a while, guys. Yeah, what's been going on? Got a question. How does the new 3G heels compare to the Dexters? They banned the old orange H1 and nothing else is quite the same. My H1 orange heel aficionado says that the new 3G heel that comes with it, the shark tooth looking one, whatever we want to call that, is somewhat close to that orange heel. They think it's a little slippier, but definitely closer to the orange heel than that burgundy one.
It feels like glue, so that doesn't surprise me. And
Um,
it's higher profile, which should help.
yeah. So that's basically where that one fits. There's a red version of that same heel that I actually quite like. I've been using that one a little bit. It's kind of probably somewhat the equivalent of that burgundy one. Maybe that burgundy one, once it's broken in a little bit, it's a little slippier. It's quite amazing when you throw these 3G heels, quite how much the material is making the difference rather than the shape. Because they basically got two different shapes, and there's like a gigantic difference between the slippiest flat one and the stickiest other one. So far they might be I might be using them a little quicker than I might have done on others, but I like them a lot. I think that it's been a huge step up from the previous 3G heels. I like the materials a lot. I've definitely not had that kind of like stick one, slip one type of thing that I felt like I got a little bit with the old 3G products.
They've been due for an update for a decade. We were working on that pre-pandemic, and then everything kind of changed. So Tyler's in charge here, and he's doing a nice job of updating all of it from the ground up. And so I would expect to continue seeing more and more products that are more updated and better than the previous versions.
I just one other question on one other point on that is I also really like the soles where you've got the little tab to pull them off.
Yeah, it's
that's a
nice add-on for sure.
It's amazing because I think that the shoes are much more comfortable than the previous shoes, but I actually think the biggest upgrade is the bottom of the shoes, the soles, the heels, and kind of how they come on and off. I actually think that's a bigger upgrade than.
They have a real insole in them too.
Yes.
It's not just I mean, I use my own that I put in, but that was the first thing I noticed when I took out the other ones was it wasn't just a thin piece of foam. It was actually a structured insole that you would see in a non-Nike shoe. Cole Schreier, one of the guys that bowls with Linda, anchor, and as he hangs people, his favorite saying is, "If you don't punish them, how will they learn?" So once he hangs them.
I recently won a Virtual Gravity X2 Pro. How would you use a ball? That sounds to me a lot like a Code Black. It being a super strong core and a kind of a R2S type cover. Probably a little bit more similar to like say an Absolute perhaps. So for me, those balls kind of fit. I kind of like them because I feel like a lot of times the stronger pearl covers get a little confused and we end up using a more surface on them. Whereas the cleaner cover stocks on the big cores end up being balls that I can really just throw to a spot way further down the lane to the right than I would be with other things. And then they tend to peel off it really nice. So for me, I kind of like that. So yeah, that's kind of the way I looked at it.
Real quick, which stronger attorney, Pi or Reality? Reality is earlier. Pi will be a little more shaped down lane. So they fit 2 different spots. I would not use them at the same time very often. Way more of a 1-2 punch before I get down to, uh, if you're saying it only the global line, then before you get to the Zens and, the Zen Gold, and those kind of balls. So, uh, let's see.
He is not.
We live
Texas
about
is
3
pretty
hours
big.
apart. Makes it a little tricky. I have not. I've seen the lower end 3G boa, but I have not.
Not played with it.
No, not at all. And if I was to guess, it's just kind of a test to make sure that that they can make them and make them correctly before they move them up to the high end shoe. So
So how do you guys use tape in your thumb? In Barnzy's video, it looks like he puts tape in the front, white with a piece of darker piece on top. What brand do you recommend?
half right. I only do use tape in the front on this side of my thumb, but I use the silver vice tape, which is the slickest of all the tapes they have. And then I like the thumb will be pretty tight. So there's no darker piece or anything else other than occasionally it gets dirty. Use the same thumbs a lot, but for me that's the slickest of them since that original bowler's tape kind of went out of business 5-6 years ago. That had some cotton in it. I struggled with the tackier tape. That's not for me. Vice has eight different levels. I think Turbo probably has something. Storm has a couple of different versions. It's really about preference. Most of them are in the middle somewhere.
I ended up I've got some really old tape, so I'm sort of somewhat still in bowler's tape. I now only use it in the front. Probably gaining a little weight. My thumb's a little more round than it was. I use it in the back, kind of when my thumb feels gigantic, but otherwise I just use a couple of pieces in the front. I use a mold, so I have 2 different molds.
Mm-hmm.
So when my thumb is like, if I take a week off or whatever, then I'll just pull out a couple of the smaller thumbs and use those for a couple of days till my thumb blows back up a little bit. Yeah. So. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to say yes, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I don't know anything about these.
You have a new PBA rule coming up January 1st or January 6th, I guess. So I would assume that we'd see something sooner than later.
Here we go. Tournament with no pattern info. Well, that's useful. Reality, Blackout, Phase 2, Exponent, Revenant, Purple. I'm guessing Purple's Purple Hammer. Is good, or should I throw in Tour Dynamics IQ Ruby? No, I like your Arsenal a lot.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a little bit speed dominant. I like the Revenant as the kind of weak ball. The Revenant for me is actually, is doing better than I thought it was going to. When it first came out, I thought it was only going to be around for a short time, but it seems to be almost like it was like this, and then it kind of plateaued off, and now it seems like it's gaining popularity again. I'm seeing a lot more of them around. Now that just might be, back and forth with people on the show because me and you both like that ball, but yeah.
Tried to notice. I did. I found it to be kind of around the three range or so of the Vice tape. For me, it was a little bit tackier than the silver, and so I've stayed with just the slickest version. But I think it's pretty good. You use the dynamics in league or tournament play? Yeah, I've used the dynamics in tournament play a little bit, and for me, it fits in a place where I could use it instead of urethane. Let me play some of the shapes and do some of use a little more speed than I can with urethane and get it to hook. So that's where I think it's best at. I've used it from the middle lane a little bit, but not nearly as much.
Yeah, for me, it's yeah. I don't really bowl any tournaments where I could use it right now, because I think that its superpower is going to be like bowling when the urethane isn't as dominant, and I think that until that happens for me, I have so many other balls that fit in that gap that I could use. Yeah. But I can see it being super like the ball I'm going to be pulling out my bag a lot on the tour next season if there isn't as much urethane about. No, you're pretty well matched up there. So I mean, depending on like which part of the country you're in and how bad the lane service is, you might want to consider something a little weaker than the Revenant. Not from the balls that you've got. I'm just saying going forward.
Senior World's advising will only be on block 40. I haven't even heard that, but to be honest, I've been a little off the grid this week. So which 6 balls would you take? It doesn't really change for me. I just cover the bases. And every time I've tried to skew it one way or the other pretty significantly, I've gotten caught almost every time and reminded that you just take, from reality, pie, Zen Gold, blackout, hustle, those kind of things. It's just way better if I just take the balls I need to take. And the one thing I don't have to worry about as much in the seniors is urethane. So.
Hello, if you're bowling with King Urethane Hash, you might.
he prefers on a little shorter patterns generally. He has gotten good at it though, for a guy who didn't like it at all. Yeah. No, I'm on the other coast, Outer Banks, so North Carolina. Exercises, well, at my age, it's mostly stretching, but core and legs are the two most important parts, and then after that, then it's really about flexibility. Shoulder, knee, hip, back flexibility, making sure that stays good. But core and legs are the two most important things to be a good bowler.
Sorry. Chris, I have a gem, a reality, Idle Cosmos, Ruby, Pitch Black, Zen. Oh god, UFO Alert, TNT. What should I add or get rid of? I mean, it's hard to say get rid of because, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, let me do this in my way. So it'd be gem, reality, then it would probably be the TNT, UFO Alert, Cosmos, Ruby. No, the Zen would be before the Cosmos.
Zen, then Cosmos, then Ruby, then
Pitch Black,
then UFO Alert, then Ruby, then Pitch Black. And the Alert, depending on the surface of it, could even be above the Zen and that.
I think you're kind of missing a stronger quick ball.
Blackout,
absolute. Yeah, something like that. Eternity Pie, even like a shiny Eternity Pie. Hello.
Hello.
Oh shit.
everybody else off the deck. So.
How do I get into competitive bowling averaging 180? Go bowl some handicap tournaments. Competition is always relative. So you just got to
at the right level will help you out a lot.
Yeah. I am not a fan of going to tournaments where you have no chance and quote unquote the experience, because there is no experience. You might as well just bowl on the lanes next to the people. Like while they bowl the tournament, you go and practice. Like there is so little to be gained from getting your head kicked in my opinion. I never did it. I just don't see the point of it. Yeah. Like The kids who go to junior gold, who are like miles behind the other kids, you're just a speed bump. Like, you're not gaining anything from it. You're just giving yourself like PTSD.
Yeah, like in our region, the Southwest Bowlers has a lot of tournaments listed on that on the Facebook groups. Most places have some kind of site like that in your local area. I would look for those and find where the tournaments are, and the Friday, Saturday tournaments. So,
but yeah, that's just like another thing to do is at the bowling center, find out if there's any team tournaments, and then just ask around if anybody's looking for a player. That's always a fun way to get into it. Team tournaments are always a bit more fun, because if you bowl with the bowlers who are a little better than you, they might be able to help you out as well. So you can kind of get better that way as well, by getting information from other people, and that encouragement that you get from being around other people is nice. So,
Mark, try and cover the real simply. I take heavy, like a heavy control ball, and by heavy I mean how much oil is kind of in the front of the lane or total on the lane. Heavy control, heavy angular, medium control, medium angular, dry angular ball, and a spare ball. That'll be the 6 balls that I take. World Championships, you're not bowling super long blocks, or where you don't have a re-oil or anything like that, so you don't need a lot of dry end, low end balls. If it's a shorter pattern, I might switch out the dry angular ball for a dry control ball, which then could be urethane or Tour Dynamics. Right now, it's a ball that fits in there. Not a question. I love watching your Weber Cup 300 game versus Dom. Yeah, I actually keep it on a loop at my house as well.
I like what happened later on in that weekend.
I don't remember that part as much.
I just real quick. Thanks, Matt, for the super sticker. Appreciate you. David, real quick. Are you two teaming up for the Southwest Region PBA 50 at Emerald? We're not. Chris has decided that he can come third with Ryan rather than come third with me. So he would get 100% of the money, not 50% of the money. I kind of see his point. I have this argument a lot of times when bowling tournaments with Tina. I'm like, if I'm going to shoot 8.25, I might as well bowl with you, rather than, more of the money go out of the family. So I understand. It kind of is what it is. It's fine. Okay, Mark, we're done with that now. The dry cliff is driving me crazy. Preach. I put surface on my IQ Ruby to try and blend it out. How do you blend out the dry cliff? I wouldn't try and blend out a dry cliff with a pearl ball, because it's going to cause you more trouble. There are 2 ways to do it, in my opinion. You take a shiny, solid, weak ball, hustle, and you kind of play the dry, or you take out whichever's the strongest, smoothest ball that you can realistically get to go through the pins. Tuesday night, for me, that was the Magic Gem. And you kind of play the oil line, knowing that if you miss a little right, it's going to kind of bleed off and be smoother. They're the 2 ways I go about it.
For me, it's a ball that gets a little forward like that too, that's shiny. So like right now, for me, the clone is a ball that's got a shiny enough cover, but it does get forward a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's more for me. I've seen some that don't do that, so I'm not sure that's an across the board. But I did it with
Infinite Physics, maybe.
Yeah.
You use what I mean is you use that one a lot.
Right. I've used that quite a bit, and use a little more speed and just let it kind of blend off of it. Did something. What was it on tour? It was the red and blue. Man, I am on vacation. I can't remember the bowling balls right now. 2 years ago. Yeah. I used it on tour a lot from the cliff. Lower pins, though. Lower pin drillings. Shinier balls that have rollier cores. And do it that way. Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And like it really depends on how easy the lane condition is. Because if it's a dry cliff on something that's quite difficult, then the option is, could be like, say, a TNT as an example. But that one might not strike enough if the scoring pace is really high. So, yeah. So thanks for the chat. I hope those are some options. But for me, principally, wet
It's
or
not a
dry
terrible
cliffs.
suggestion.
Sorry?
DNA is not a terrible suggestion. DNA is what somebody
Yeah.
suggested. That's not a terrible suggestion. That's a ball that huge core, and it is fairly smooth, in my opinion, down lane. So,
But I think just in general, you need to commit to playing kind of trying to play the dry or trying to play the oil, and like finding a ball to work on one of those others.
this question goes right to what we're talking about. Pin down is really to help blend out, when the lanes are hard and when the lanes are wet dry. That's another accentuator. It's not the end all be all, but it can help blend out those kind of things versus pin up. It accentuates what's on the lane a little bit more.
I like pin down when the front part of the lane isn't very good, because I think it blends that first part of the lane out. So my ball doesn't tend to grab that the messed up part of the lane as quickly.
Like
Hey,
to do
Adam.
a comparison with the new bowling balls that came out. Would you do that with me, Chris Barnes? Well, Adam, we don't live in the same place. We're 1,500 miles apart.
So it's a little difficult, as much as I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Me and Chris struggle to do the balls together, and we only live 200 miles apart.
Yeah, we've done one, and it was a TNT,
and it worked out real well. Everybody loved it, but we're both too lazy to get in the car and do it. So the other end of the country is a little strong.
It ended up being probably one of the worst balls that we've tested in the last few years.
Well, we did it also with the UC3 as well, so it was only bangers.
Yeah.
And that was a day when we both thought the UC3 might actually be useful.
Yeah.
Like, we don't purposefully go into these ball videos trying to fuck you guys. We really don't.
No.
That day, my UC3 was absolutely ridiculous. And I went in as the most negative person ever with that ball. I even texted Alex and I'm like, I'm never going to use this ball. Lay one out. And he laid it out. And I'm like, oh my God, you're a genius. This ball's absolutely amazing.
And we both were really looking forward to the TNT and couldn't throw a strike with it.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. This is why when everybody says, what would you do if you did it? I go, I don't have a clue, because half the balls I absolutely love, I had absolutely no desire to throw.
It's been one of the best things about getting the video balls is that I've drilled up more than a few balls that I would not have even ordered. I certainly would have been late to the party by the time I figured out that I liked them. Everyone else would have already had one. So, do you think the Magic Gem could complement my Brutal Collision? I don't know much about that one. The Brutal for me is like a grindier exotic. So I'm worried it might be too similar.
I think that there is a good chance that those two balls would be quite similar.
Okay.
I think the Brutal Collision comes a little shinier though, from what I've seen, or maybe they just shine up really quickly. But yeah, it depends how many other balls you had. But I could see that those two balls wouldn't, like on Chris's chart, they would kind of be like heavy control balls, both of them. The Brutal might be a little more angular, but like, yeah, I think they'd be somewhat similar. What do you mean between dry cliff and wet cliff, or isn't there a wet cliff? So here's the way I do it. Like, to me, the dry cliff is when I'm predominantly leaving the 3-pin because the ball is going through the face. The wet cliff is when I'm predominantly leaving the 2-pin because every time I miss a little left, it just like doesn't even think about it. That's the definition I go with.
For me, it's if I can use a dull ball and still get it to go through the pins, then that would be a wet cliff. How much oil is in the front? A dry cliff is, wow, those balls flat 10 every time. I have to use shiny balls or weaker balls to get through there because the front hook's too much. That'd be my definition.
Yeah, like I think Chris's is more about the entire lane. Mine is more specific on the issue. For me, the wet cliff is when the wet is the main issue that I have. The dry cliff is when the dry is the main issue that I have. So, but that's a good question because obviously,
Yeah.
we can be talking at cross purposes.
All right, I'm going to wrap up pretty soon. So if you got any more questions, fire them in. Sorry.
How's it going? What are your thoughts on the upcoming journey? We have no idea, really. I've seen Belmo throw it, and Belmo can basically make the ball do whatever the fuck he wants. Almost completely on demand. So from what he told me, now let's take this with a pinch of salt. It does have his logo on the side of it. He thinks that the journey is a step below the phase 2, and it's a little more angular for him than the phase 2 would be when the phase 2 is shiny. So
put it somewhat in the exponent range.
Yeah, I think it's more of a like stronger phase 5. Like it fits between phase 2 and phase 5.
Gotcha.
From the way he was describing it. For me, that would be, I think it's basically got a similar cover stock to the phase 2, maybe like a hybrid or a pearl version of that. Whereas phase 5 and phase 4 were R2S, which is, I think, in my eyes and what I see, not being told anything, but I think that is somewhat the same family as the exponent. So, yeah. Let's see. That's a nice hoodie. That's not a nice face. Damn. Oh, wow. They're all going for it. Are they ready to go to the beach? Jesus, how many people are in this house? All right, Chris. Well, it seems like it seems like we're moving on with your day.
Yeah, it might be time. might be a good time to wrap up for me. But yeah. This place has 12 bedrooms. There are a lot of people can fit in here.
The Intense wasn't a ball that I liked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, this show's off the rails. They want to party.
It is time. It had a little rain this morning, and it's time to go to the beach. So,
hey, look at this. We should have gotten that feature every time we got a super chat. Look at that one, Chris. I think that's my phone that does that. Yeah, it was Silver Sneakers.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be. More all white people with no rhythm. Wow, that's rude.
Yeah, all right, generally speaking. All right. Thanks guys, for showing up. We'll be back at you on Tuesday from a more less scenic locale where the Earl Anthony picture will be back in the background versus the ocean. So, or dolphins or whatever's back there now.
I was about to say, sorry, Earl. We like the ocean.
So that will be it for me.
I'm getting out of here too.
And us. So I appreciate you showing up. We'll be back and be able to have a little longer show or whatever you want to do. We might even have a guest by next week. So, but until next time, please support the sponsors that support us. Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Cool Wick, Bowler's Mark, Fire Lake Bowling, Lightning Strikes, Platinum Ford, and whatever reggae music that was. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later, guys.